Hi guys, ArchieLuxury on the ArchieLuxury channel. Today guys, I want to talk to you and I want to tell you something that's absolutely shocked me. Rolex is now a GRAIL brand. Rolex Steel Sports, like this Submariner date, is now a GRAIL. What do I mean? Well, going back 10 years ago, when you asked the average watch collector, what's your GRAIL? It may be a gold Rolex. It could be a Patek Philippe Calatrava. I'd like a Patek. It might be a Lange. Now, when you ask a collector, what is your GRAIL? It could be something as humble as a Rolex Steel Sports. See, what's happened is, in the last 5 years particularly, Rolex Steel Sports has become next to impossible to buy from the AD. The prices for Rolex Steel Sports on the secondary market, we have seen prices rise. So on the secondary market, prices for many Rolex Steel Sports is way above retail. Even things like the humble Air King, the Milgauss, are now trading way above retail prices. And this is supply and demand. Basically, there is very limited stock in the AD. Well, there is stock. They just won't sell it without buying other issues. That's a topic for another video. But without a extensive history, you can't go into a Rolex dealer and buy a Steel Sports Rolex. Now, this has been the case for the Daytona for a long time, even before year 2000. But it wasn't the case for Rolex Submariners. It wasn't the case for GMTs. You might have to wait a few months, but they always had stock coming in. Rolex now is a GRAIL brand. As that supply has dried up, you're now finding that people are very conscious of Rolex. Now, what else has happened is that Rolex itself, so it's become the GRAIL. When you say to somebody, what's your GRAIL watch? And they might say, oh, I'd love a Rolex ceramic Submariner. I'd love a Milgauss. Even the humble Air King is mentioned with bated breath. That's what's happened. Now, the interesting thing is, Rolex itself, very, very hard to get. The humble Submariner trading $10,000 over retail. These are very, very hard times. Now, in the past, you could have multiple Rolexes. In fact, I did. I had multiple Rolex. I had 16, this was in the late 90s, 16610, which was the sub-date steel. I had an Explorer 2, 16570, date 8, 18238. There was only one, well, there's two sizes, mid-size, which was 31 mils, and there was a 36 mil. I had a Datejust 16233, sorry, 16013. And as a beater, I had a 16800 Submariner. those watches there have risen in price. And people, I remember one guy who shall not be named, he took me aside. He worked for a watch dealer and said, Paul, what are you doing with all these Rolexes? Have one or two Rolexes, but get yourself an IWC. Get a PAM. Get a GRAIL. This was the advice. And the funny thing is now, the market for Rolex has shot up so incredibly fast that most collectors, the Rolex Steel Sports has become a super grail. For the average lower middle class punter, married with a mortgage and a car payment, a Steel Sports Rolex is fantasy material. It's a fantasy to be able to afford that type of purchase. Rolex is now GRAIL. The other unfortunate thing that's happened is, going back 10 years ago, you say, what's your GRAIL watch? That's, I'd like a Patek. They follow the hype. They now say, I'd love an Aquanaut, or I'd love a Nautilus. Going back 10 years ago, these models, you could get them at retail at the AD. In fact, you'd probably get a discount. This is the sad situation that is the world we live in watch collecting. So Rolex itself, instead of it being a Mercedes-Benz, something you could feasibly achieve. Yes, you had to work hard, but you could achieve it. It's now become extraordinary. Let me tell you a story. When I was a young snipper, 18 years old, I always wanted a Rolex. In fact, I wanted any Rolex I could get. I thought I'd be getting an Air King. I ended up getting a 1016. Initially, I was disappointed because the Air King had the sapphire glass. 34mm Air King, sapphire crystal, and I was disappointed with the 1016. Crazy. My boss many years ago, he had a 1665. That's a Sea Dweller, plastic Sea Dweller, white plastic Sea Dweller. White, wasn't the red Sea Dweller, it was the white one. And he showed me. He paid it off in installments. He had the installments. He showed me. We used to go in every week. I got paid and put a payment down because it was a lot of money. And this is what you did. Now you can't buy this on installments. You've got to pay the piper, unless you have a track record with the AD. He doesn't want to. He's not going to sell you anything hard to get like that. He wants you to buy crap. He wants you to buy crap. And I got to be totally honest with you. This is the reality. This is the reality. It's the reality. This is the new normal. And in all honesty, the only way a lower middle class man will get a Steel Submariner, Sea Dweller, or Explorer, or GMT is to pay the grey market secondary price. That's the only way it will be achieved. It won't be achieved easily. You're wasting your time going to the grey market unless you're prepared to pay the market price. You can't get these below retail. Very, very few and far between. the market price. See, the retail price is largely irrelevant with Rolex because it's unobtainable. You can't get it for that price. Rolex is now a lifetime grail. That's right, guys. It is a grail watch for wealthy individuals. It's no longer within cooey of lower middle class, overweight guys like me. The sad reality, Rolex is now a grail brand. I'm ArchieLuxury. Tell me what you guys think of that.